Hey y'all, it's Ilana and welcome back to my channel. So for this video, I'm going to be telling you things that nobody tells you when it comes to apartment hunting in San Francisco. Just a little disclaimer, I am not actually hunting for apartments for myself in San Francisco. This is just strictly an educational video that will teach you on how to find the perfect apartment and also not get scammed while doing so. So if you're excited to learn more, then we're about to get started right now. One thing that nobody really tells you when it comes to apartment hunting is to set your budget. Now, you're probably already thinking, well, obviously I need to know how to set a budget. But the thing is, some people don't actually know how much they should actually be paying in rent when it comes to their salary. One tool that I really want to share with you that I feel like nobody knows about to help you find the solid medium to paying rent is a little tool called Domu's rent calculator. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If you go to www.domu.com/rent-calculator, you're going to see this calculator. So when you type in your salary, let's say you're making $100K in San Francisco, I am going to click how much can I afford? So it gives you the low range, the mid range, and the high range. So if you are making $100K, you could easily shoot for the low range and pay $1,500 in rent. That is a very doable budget for San Francisco. I feel like that is the average that people pay for a room. But if you are making a six-figure salary, you could afford a studio and possibly a one-bedroom. And if you look at the mid and the high range, you could easily find a studio for $1,850 to $2,350. Are the studios going to be nice and big? Well, no. If you really want to live alone, you can use the mid-range as a doable option, and then it gives you the high range on the maximum that you can spend. So here it is saying $3,150 is the most you can spend, but just keep in mind that you're probably not going to have a lot of money left over. I usually shoot for the mid-range when it comes to rent. I think it's a solid medium, and I also feel like for this kind of salary that I'm making in the low range that it gives me, it's not exactly realistic for San Francisco. It's really hard to find rooms that range from like $700 to $900. Maybe if you go to the East Bay, you might find a room for $900, but it's really rare. So I just shoot for the mid-range because it's more realistic for me and my salary expectations, but everyone is going to be different. I really recommend that you check out the rent calculator that Domu provides because it's just super helpful when it comes to determining how much should you be paying in rent. And sometimes that's just something that people don't always know, and this helps you figure it out for yourself. So definitely check that out, and let's move on to the second thing. So the next thing that you need to keep in mind before you even start searching for apartments is to know what your non-negotiables are. So what I mean by this are what are some things that you must have in your apartment in order for you to live comfortably. You've got your budget down, now you need to decide what needs to be in your apartment. For me, I have two non-negotiables. The first one being it must be cat friendly because I do have a cat, and I also want to note if you are a pet owner yourself, just understand that it is incredibly hard to find pet-friendly housing in the city. It takes me forever to find a pet-friendly place when I do have to move apartments, and I'll be honest, it is the #1 thing that holds me back in my apartment search because everything says no pets, no pets, no pets, and it makes me super sad. Just understand that it is going to be a lot more competitive and harder for you if you do have a pet, and I've always been fortunate to find something that does meet my requirements. The other non-negotiable that I have personally is that laundry must be somewhere in the apartment or a building. I don't care if I have to pay for it. I just refuse to go to a laundromat because it's a pain in the butt to haul your laundry a block or two away. It's just overall a huge inconvenience for me. So those are my two non-negotiables. So think of what you need in your apartment. Do you have a car? Do you need a parking spot? Do you want a dishwasher? Do you also want laundry? Just think about what do you need to have in your apartment to help you live comfortably. That will also help you narrow down your search and make it easier for you to target apartments in the long term. Let's go on to the third thing. One big thing that nobody really talks about when it comes to finding an apartment in San Francisco is to understand the neighborhoods of San Francisco and where you want to live. This may not necessarily be a deal breaker for everyone. It's certainly not a deal breaker for me. me, I don't have too much of a preference except for 1 or 2 neighborhoods that I know I would not want to live in. I do recommend that you be as open-minded as possible when it comes to a neighborhood. I understand that some people want to live as closest to their job as possible so their commute is not that long in the morning. I get it, but sometimes it's not going to always work into your favor. Just understand that if you are going to target neighborhoods, make a list of your neighborhoods and also make sure that they are in your budget and that they meet your non-negotiable requirements. That's going to be really important because some people just want to live in certain kinds of areas. If you want to live in an area where there's a bunch of bars and nightlife, then you should look at neighborhoods that offer that. But if you want to live in something quieter, then you need to look at places like the Sunset or the Richmond. They're very quiet. Those are just some things that you just kind of need to keep in mind when it comes to looking for neighborhoods, but don't let that be a sole deal breaker for you because it's just gonna make it harder for you to find an apartment in the long run. Craigslist is a huge resource for finding apartments. One thing you have to keep in mind with Craigslist is that there are a ton of scams out on Craigslist. And I cannot tell you how many people will get duped and ripped off on Craigslist because they ran into a scammer and then they basically wasted their deposit money on an apartment that doesn't even actually exist. I want to go over 3 things with you on what you need to know when it comes to finding an apartment on Craigslist so you do not get scammed. Let's talk about the title of a listing. Anything that says lovely, cozy, comfy, or if you see a lot of emojis and symbols in the title, it's probably a scam. Another thing that you need to look at when you click on an ad is how descriptive is the description? Is there any effort into the description or is it very short and vague? Scammers are lazy as hell and they will not tell you a lot of details about the apartment. They'll maybe write a short little paragraph with 3 pictures and it doesn't share you enough information about the room. I always overlook these because for me personally, I need to see a listing that is detailed as possible with a ton of information telling me a little bit about the people that live there and also the fact that they're very inviting in their listing saying please reach out if you're interested in seeing the place because a scammer will never ever show you the place, ever. One thing that you need to know is don't ever put down a deposit without seeing the apartment first. Never do that. If you're emailing somebody and all they do is they show you pictures through email and they tell you that they're not available to show you the place, but here are pictures and I'll mail you the keys, run out the door. Never ever let someone mail you the keys because you're never gonna get keys and you're gonna get scammed out of money. So always see the apartment first. And I know with this crazy time right now, it's okay to FaceTime or do a video tour of the apartment. And if you know that someone is in that house and you know that they're willing to do a video tour, then it's probably going to be legit and it's a real apartment that you're seeing. Another thing you wanna look out for are the prices listed in the ad. If you see listings in different neighborhoods that range from $700 to $1,600 for a room in Pack Heights, the Marina, North Beach, Russian Hill, aka some of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city, it's probably a scam, especially if you see apartments below $1,000. I can guarantee you, you are not going to pay that kind of rent in San Francisco. It is totally a scam, and I highly suggest you do not move forward with that because you're just gonna lose money. Of course, if you really think that it may be legit and you honestly need to use your best judgment, reach out to the person and say, hey, I'm interested in seeing this place, when can I see it? If someone replies back to you with some really weird message with really poor grammar, it's probably a scammer. A lot of scammers are foreign and their English isn't exactly the best, and they're not going to show you the place. All they have are pictures and they're going to sound really sketch in the process. So that's how you know it's a scam. Those are some things you need to keep in mind when you're looking for apartments on Craigslist. But I do think Craigslist is a really great resource to have when it comes to looking for apartments. My advice to you when it comes to looking for apartments on Craigslist in San Francisco is to make sure the description is detailed as possible. It has tons of pictures to show, it has contact information of the person, and the fact that the person is willing to show you the apartment. And if it has all that, then it's probably a real listing and you should totally check it out. Oh, and one other thing that I want to note when it comes to Craigslist, if you see a 1-bedroom apartment for less than $2,000, it's most definitely a scam. There is no such thing as a 1-bedroom apartment that costs below $2,000 in San Francisco. So if you see a 1-bedroom or a studio in San Francisco that is like $1,300, it is hella no way real. Guys, I gotta be honest with you, most studios in San Francisco can range from $2,500 to $3,150. That's a lot of money. And 1-bedrooms are definitely going to be at least $3,000. Now, I have seen some in the Tenderloin that are about $2,850 because they're in the Tenderloin, which is not the greatest neighborhood in the city. But I gotta say, despite the Tenderloin not being the safest neighborhood, there are a lot of things in the Tenderloin. There's so many places to eat. There are a lot of bars. You're near a ton of shopping because you're so close to Union Square. So the location itself is ideal, but what's surrounding it, not so much. So just take that into consideration when it comes to looking at apartments and what your budget is once again. Seriously, if you think you found a studio or a 1-bedroom for $1,300, is not real. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go on to the next resource that you can use. So another amazing resource that you can use to find apartments in San Francisco is through Facebook Marketplace and Facebook housing groups. There are so many listings throughout Facebook that are 100% legit. Now, there are some scams that do get posted, but people in Facebook groups are so quick to call out the people who post that listing, whether it's really sketchy or too good to be true. So make sure you read the comments on every listing that interests you and see if people are saying messaged or this looks like a scam. And don't be discouraged if you see a ton of people saying message, meaning that they're interested in the apartment, because there's a very good chance that they may flake on that person and not actually agree to see the place. So just ignore all the people that are saying message, and follow through with it, because that's gonna lead me to the next key point. The housing market in San Francisco is hella competitive. So you need to act super fast when it comes to looking for an apartment. Apartments get snatched up like that in San Francisco. So do not dilly-dally and wait around. If you're seeing 3 apartments in one day, and there's at least 2 that you like in that day, you need to make a decision immediately, because there's a very good chance that somebody could take it. So you have to be quick and on your toes. That's just how competitive it is. I know it's absolutely crazy to compete for a place to live, but unfortunately that's just the way it is here, because there's just so many people that live here and want to live here. Really quick, I post videos on San Francisco all the time. So if you are loving this video, then make sure you subscribe down below so you don't miss any more content on me talking about San Francisco lifestyle. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Another important thing that you need to know is to avoid open houses. So if you are able to afford a studio or a 1-bedroom, a lot of places will have open houses for you to see the place. I recommend that you don't attend those open houses because there's going to be a long line and it's going to be very competitive with people lined up with their checkbooks ready to go. What you need to do in order to snag a place is to ask the property manager or the landlord in advance if you can see it before the open house. Tell them you can't make it to the open house, but you really want to see the place. Can we set up an appointment to do that? Most of the time, they will be willing to do that for you because, well, they want to make the sale. So go ahead and see the place before the open house, and if you love it on the spot, it can be yours as long as you have the money up front, which leads me to the next thing. If you are going to see an apartment, whether it is through a property manager or through someone who has a room that's available, or someone who has an open room available, make sure that you have deposit money in your bank account ready to go to send that money to that person. It is so important because once you put a deposit down, it's yours and nobody else's, and boom, you've secured an apartment. It all comes back to being quick and staying on top of things, because again, if you don't stay on top of things, you're gonna lose that apartment that you love. Make sure you have that money and you can snatch up a great place. And the last thing that I wanna note, which I've mentioned in my moving to San Francisco video a couple weeks ago, is to be timely with this process. If you are going to start looking for an apartment and you're already in San Francisco, then I recommend you do start your search a month in advance. That way you have some time to look for a place and you can go and see a bunch of apartments for yourself. And the reason I say a month is because, well, the market is super competitive. You want to allow a ton of time for yourself to find the perfect spot. If you are able to lock in a place by the end of 1 week, then that's amazing. You are better off being safe than sorry. and you won't have to stress for the rest of the month when finding a new place, and you can allot enough time to pack up your stuff and get your things collected to prepare for your move for your new apartment. I hope this video was really informative and helpful for you and really opened up your eyes when it comes to finding apartments in San Francisco. I know it is crazy expensive to live out here, and it's insane how competitive it is to find a place, but hopefully this makes it a lot easier for you when it comes to looking for an apartment. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.